Well, it is really my pleasure to introduce you to our moderator, Sharik Richardson. Sharik is the founder and digital marketer, web designer, and marketing consultant for her own firm, Digital Innovation Media Group. She's also a two-time graduate of Florida A&M, both an undergrad and a graduate degree. And I'm really excited that she's going to be leading this conversation today because she is much more in tune with what's happening on sort of the digital and web front, and will be able to guide us through this important conversation around marketing security. So I'm going to let Sharik talk a little bit more about her business and her background, and then she will introduce the panelists. Sharik, off to you.
Great. Thank you, Mariska, and welcome to everyone. It's definitely my honor to be here today to moderate this very important webinar. It's a very serious subject, but we can have fun with this as well. We can definitely learn. It's something for all of us to learn, regardless what area of marketing that you're in. So like Mariska said, I am the founder of Digital Innovation Media Group. We are a web design and digital marketing agency. And yes, I'm a proud Rattler, Florida A&M, and I'm a new transplant here in the New Orleans area. This is my third year here. So this organization has been very instrumental in me learning about, just meeting other marketers and networking and just continuing to grow and learn along with others who live the same life that I do. And so this has been my pleasure to be here today to serve as your moderator. So what I'm going to do right now is introduce our panelists, and then we're going to go right into questioning. As Mariska said, if you have a question, just pop it in the chat. I'll be looking and she'll be looking. And so if you have a question, we will acknowledge it, or you can raise your hand and we can also give you the floor about that. But we really prefer you just put that into the chat so that way we can make sure everyone's question is answered. So our first panelist is Jack Reiner. He is the Chief Technology Officer of Elliptical Hosting. He has a 35-year career in software development and computer system admin. From his early days developing artificial intelligence for NASA's space shuttle launch process, to his work with Cray supercomputers for the US Navy, to his founding of Elliptical Hosting in the mid-1990s, Jack has long worked in the forefront of technology. Today, he and his team focus on providing secure, fast, and reliable website and email hosting with fully managed customer support. He is the father of 4 children. In his off time, he likes to swim, cycling. If you follow Jack and you see him riding his bike, you see that he rides long distances, more than probably I could ever do and last on a bike, but that just shows you how much he just loves to cycle. You may see him riding around New Orleans and backpacking. In a personal achievement, last year, Jack completed a solo 115-mile bicycle ride from Baton Rouge to New Orleans in a single day. Like I just said, it's amazing. Also, our next panelist is Vince Gremillion. He is the president and founder of Restech. His journey as an owner of one of the leading IT service companies started over 30 years ago when he became interested in electronics while at East Jefferson High School. After graduating in 1979, he started taking classes at local trade schools for electronics. His education landed him a job with a local company which sold and repaired point of sale systems. As he progressed through his career, he was exposed to first series Apple and Mac computers, and he installed networks for Macs and developed proprietary circuits. He's put a lot of effort into continuing his education and transforming himself into a more effective business leader and analyst. In 2013, he was awarded the Louisiana Business Person of the Year Award by the Small Business Administration. In 2016, he became a certified information systems security professional, and he implements cybersecurity awareness and training for businesses. He also has a GIAC certified incident handler. The GIAC incident handler certification validates a practitioner's ability to detect, respond, and resolve computer security incidents through a wide range of essential security skills. So I can definitely say these 2 gentlemen are highly skilled and capable of answering any questions that you may have regarding security for your systems. And we are definitely pleased to have them this afternoon with us. And so I'm going to get started with the first question for Vince. What are the potential risks for people who are using home computers for work tasks? And as we know with the pandemic, that has become the norm now over the past year. So what are some of the potential risks that employers or employees can face?
Thanks. I think the primary risk comes from when you're mingling personal and corporate use together. And what we're seeing is a primary tenet in cybersecurity and a good security practice is segmenting your network and dividing it up by task or making sure if something gets infected, it doesn't get crossover to another important piece. And of course, most home networks are not going to be segmented. They usually are not going to have strong passwords. There's no enforcement of good password controls. And they typically have weak Wi-Fi keys or use using default passwords on their devices. Primarily if somebody has a Nest camera or older technologies where you have to have home camera systems and you want to look at that, you have to open up a port in your firewall at the house, and that's usually unauthenticated, and it's widely used to use that type of avenue to get into your house and then take over your computers and plant malware and such. Working on public workspaces without any extra controls is really a bad practice. Using your personal email addresses, getting phished and with website drive-bys. Jack's very familiar with that. It's easy to go to a compromised website and not know it and have a drive-by control dropped into your computer. And without good controls, you won't detect it. If you don't detect it, you won't know it's there, and it's just sucking out information, your keystrokes and such to a nefarious actor. You'll never know that you even were breached, and that's probably what an attacker wants, is you never to find out. And then, of course, social media threats. What you put out there can be used against you, and then to form phishing attacks or to form some sort of pretense or pretext in order to attack you or to your clients. One thing we do not post on our websites, we don't post our clients. We don't post, we do, unfortunately, and there was some debate internally, have our staff on the site. There's good ideas about that from a marketing perspective, but bad ideas when it comes to not just security, but actually being poached, by other IT firms, which, these people are in high demand. Right. So those are just a short list of threats and risks that you take when you work from home. It's just a lack of controls, really.
Do you think to reduce that, should employees use their business, like their laptops, take those home instead of using their personal computers? Do you think that would cause a reduction, or do you think that they will be just at equal risk?
Honestly, it might sound like a radical idea, but it's a fairly novel idea. It makes a lot of sense to have a virtual computer out, say, in Amazon or Azure. The cost is minimal. It's really almost plug and play, and then you really never have to worry about it to a large extent. There's your segmentation, there's your separation that could be used, and if something happens to it, you just regenerate it. And it's really it's a simple process, and it's especially in the security community, we like to explode malware, we like to track things, and we like to put in tools. And if we did that on our work computer, our production computer, that could really bog it down and cause problems and introduce issues. So we'll create virtual machines, either in the cloud or local in a lab, use that. And if it goes bad, we just destroy it and start over. I'd recommend that today. I think you'll see that throughout the questions in my notes, that using that is a good idea. Virtual desktop, virtual computers, I think make a lot of sense today.
Great. And keeping along. Well, I was actually.
I was just going to add to what Vince just said, is that I have had a virtual desktop for quite a few years now. And this way, if anything ever happens to the laptop that I carry, it doesn't matter, right? The whole purpose of it is just to log into the virtual desktop, and that's behind firewalls, that's backed up, that gets replicated. So it's protected, it's well protected. And if something bad happened, it could be restored back to a safe point of view. So I really like what you just said about that, Vince.
And it's almost infinite in the sense that you don't ever have to replace it. You can use literally anybody's computer to access this virtual desktop, and that the layers of security behind it are really good. And it's very inexpensive these days. Very inexpensive.
Well, that's awesome and great information. Jack, I want to keep that conversation going to you. As more people are working at home, most of them are communicating over email. And, people may think it's no big deal to, oh, here's my password, or here's the information that you need to get into whatever. As a rule of thumb, what things should or should not be shared by email other than, of course, the password?
Well, you said it right with the password, but there's a lot here to unpack. I'm actually going to start with something that Vince just said, and that was, and now it escapes me the moment I want to bring it up.
Happens, yeah.
It was about the segmenting, and oh, I don't. Okay, so it was the phishing attacks. So just to define it, so that everybody knows what we're talking about, a phishing attack will look like it's coming from somebody you know, and it's going to ask you to do something, often to click on something. It might be your boss saying, "Oh, here's the new report. Open this report."
Mhm.
An old tenet of email security, this goes back way back, is you don't click on things, you don't download binary, executables that you're from people that you're not expecting to do from, even if you know them. If you weren't expecting this, you don't do that. Well, the phishing attacks have really increased with work from home, because now you can't just turn and ask your colleague or your boss in the next office over there, say, "Did you really ask me to wire you this money?" And unfortunately, we have seen this happen a few times where, because everybody's sort of isolated from each other right now, it's like, "Oh, I didn't realize my boss was traveling and he needs this money." It really has happened. And these are intelligent people who get fooled with it. Where, everybody's trying to get things done quickly, and especially from work from home, maybe your children are screaming in the background and you've got something else going on, or you're more distracted legitimately. And you're just trying to get through all of this and click the wrong thing. And unfortunately, bad things do happen that way. So that's the email is a big issue. Absolutely. In terms of phishing attacks, it's only getting better, unfortunately. Better is not the right word for it, but more effective might be a better way to say it.
Right.
At tripping up people. And there are tools to train your users if your organization is large enough. There are very good tools out there to teach people, almost in a lab setting. It will send out quote fake stuff, but it doesn't do anything bad. It's just like, okay, this person needs a little more training about this here or there.
Mhm. I definitely agree with that. I was just telling my sons about that, because one of their classmates received a phishing email and they're in 5th grade. So
Right.
it's not just workers, but it's everywhere. So I think that's something that, regardless of where you are in life, that you have to be very careful about opening any email that's not from someone you know, or like you said, if you're not expecting it or anything like that. So it's very important. I want to take it back to Vince, because myself, I work from home, and sometimes the 4 walls can kind of come in on you, and you want to get out to a coffee shop, or you want to go to a library or something like that. And a lot of times these places have their own Wi-Fi. So even though I kind of feel like I know the answer to that question, I'm going to ask you anyway. What about using the public Wi-Fi in coffee shops and other, non-office environments? What is your take about how a worker or a business can stay safe?
Well, the problem with coffee shops is there's no guarantee of security. They're not. They're there for convenience, and there's lots of other people there. So I'm going to go back to the virtual desktop idea. You can make your own VPN, and it's very, very inexpensive. And it's your own VPN. You're not going to Nord or Pure or any of these others, because you have no idea what these servers are actually doing, where they're located, or what agreements they have with whatever governments they're working with. So the trend now is to just roll your own VPN, and it's not hard to do. There are YouTube videos about how to do it inexpensively with Amazon, Azure, Google, you name it. There's templates that are out there that you can actually do this pretty well. I'd feel comfortable with that to do that, because the threat at the public access site is somebody intercepting your communications, decrypting it, but you never know it. It's called a man-in-the-middle attack. These things are free software products. You can watch YouTube videos on how to do it, and people might do it just for fun, but you can actually decrypt the SSL encryption that's going to a website. Somebody can steal out that information, monitor your website, actually return bad information, redirect you however they want to do it. Those are the threats of public Wi-Fi.
Okay, just for those who don't know or who are here today, what is a VPN? How would you describe that?
Virtual private network. That's what VPN stands for. It's virtually a private network. And the technology it really hasn't changed over the last, 25 years, Jack, basically.
Yeah.
So what's taking the place of VPNs is something called SASE. It's a secure access service edge, or certificates, and or these VPN-less things. There's a product, an open source product called Zero Tier. Actually, no, it's a commercial product, Zero Tier. And what it does, it's an agent that runs on your computer that creates a VPN for you. And it will give you virtual access to your corporate resources, your virtual desktop, wherever, so that you don't have to expose even your VPN information to the internet, because that all has to be exposed because you don't know where you're going to be. So you can't really lock it down. The way that you want to secure these things is with certificates and what's called device level authorization, where you actually have to authorize a device to connect to the network you're trying to protect. These are, things that need to be done, that are very rarely done, but they're becoming more and more prevalent into the small, medium business space. They're big in the enterprises, but they're just getting into the small, medium business space, where you really need to authorize a device to connect to the networks you want to protect or access. That's coming. You notice that multi-factor or two-factor authentication is now prevalent, is now everybody's doing it. It's going to be the same thing with device authorizations.
Mhm. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, just switching it back to email security, Jack, since I know this is definitely your wheelhouse. We mentioned anti-phishing controls, that have made, email deliverability more difficult. As a host of email, what deliverability issues have you experienced when dealing with company networks or firewalls?
So we routinely see email deliverability associated with marketing campaigns, quite frankly. That's a big one, in that in the hosting world, we have some tools to help with email deliverability. The biggest one typically is going to be something called SPF, or Sender Policy Framework, implemented in the DNS. And I'm not trying to throw out a lot of tech jargon here at all, but it's at a high level. It's essentially a whitelist of the servers that are authorized to send email for your domain. Mm-hmm. Definitely, the devil is in the details, and the implementation can be kind of tricky, and that's why you have people like me and Vince to do that for you. But what will happen is the marketing arm of a company is like, we're going to send out this new marketing campaign, and we got this new company that's going to actually do it for us, and maybe we'll go through Constant Contact, we'll go through MailChimp, or one of the other dozens or so that are out there. And they don't talk to the technology side in order to make sure that that's going to work. And they'll blast out 1,000 or 10,000 messages and get 80% bounce back. And then all of a sudden they're starting to get blacklisted now because people think their stuff sends spam because it came from servers not authorized to send on behalf of abc.com or whatever your domain is. So I see that routinely. And then somebody like me or Vince has to go in and clean up this mess. And they're usually unhappy because they lost, the marketing campaign, they lost the timing of it. They spent that money and really did not get what they wanted. And if your domain starts getting blacklisted, you've got extra cleanup to do now. So what I would say is, marketing people, talk to your tech people, or whoever's handling your email and DNS hosting ahead of time, and make sure that this is good. I know at least MailChimp can absolutely do a test send, and I suspect they probably all can. Mm-hmm. And you should do that.
Yeah, I agree. And one important point: think about spam and phishing attackers. They're basically marketers. They're just a different level. They're trying to get you to respond. They're trying to deliver an email. So you're in the same position as they are when it comes to that. And they're using the same human reflexes and you're trying to push the same human buttons, emotional, psychological buttons to get people to respond. So really, the marketing association, marketing people and hackers are sharing the same ethos in the back end. The results, certainly the end result of that, of course, are two different things. But at the end of the day, both people are looking to get money by people responding to messages. So if you think of it like that, you're going to maybe think a little bit differently about how you approach how successful you want your marketing to be, because you really have to. It's becoming more and more difficult to deliver mail reliably. And Jack, I'm sure you've seen that. Marketers are experiencing that. And then when we take on a new client, one of the things we have to do is try to find out all the places where their email is being sent from. And we don't always get it right. We probably get it right 80% of the time off the bat, but we'll figure out within 2 weeks, hey, I can't get this email sent because they have a scanner. They have some marketing, they have some billing system, they have whatever it is. We have to bring that into the fold, get the information, put it in a DNS There's SPF, there's DKIM and DMARC. There's 3 sets of records that you need to be in place to deliver mail reliably and to keep those things updated.
Right. Now, I just have a comment just to add to what you're saying, that hackers from parents, thank you for asking or making a comment. Hackers are marketers that get better click-through rates because they don't have to follow the law or
That's
ethics.
Right.
Wow, that's the big takeaway here.
That is. That is. Hey, Perrin. Congratulations on your new stuff. I heard, parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the good quote, really good quote. Yeah, they use every type of means out there available. They use a swarming. Let's just say a swarming, like you've heard of drone swarming. This is email swarming, so they can send out across multiple different ways. So yeah, their click-through rates and their delivery rates are going to be higher because they don't have to abide by the ethics laws. Exactly.
Yes. And so I know not myself, but just so many people who own websites, a lot of clients just don't think that it will be them. You think this is what happens to other people. I'm not Amazon. You know what I mean? Can you explain, Jack, how a typical business site can still be at, risk of bad actors like this?
Right. So we get this from time to time. Somebody calls and they're upset. There's like, why did my website get hacked? It's like, I'm a nobody when you get down to it, right? I'm not selling anything. It's a small sort of mom and pop environment. The reality is every web server can also function as an email server. So right away, if they can hack into your site, they can use it to send out spam. They can deface your site. I mean, the hackers have different goals. So depending on what they're trying to do, sometimes you'll see political defacement on websites. That's a tip. I would call that about the lowest of the low-hanging fruit, but it happens and it upsets people, understandably. The sending out spam, and then the other big thing that we will see on just about any website will be redirect pages where there's spam, right? When you get spam, it clicks you to take somewhere. Well, that somewhere is typically a redirect page anyway to the really bad stuff. So it'll go to what would appear to be a legitimate, might even be a legitimate website, but that's got a bad redirect down that built into it now, or embedded into it rather. And then, and I assure you, your hosting company won't like that. They will shut you down as soon as they discover this has happened.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Another thing that most web servers are also hosting multiple other websites. One server is could host dozens and dozens of websites. One bad one will ruin the rest. Absolutely.
Yeah. And just as a web designer, it's important that if you're going to have a website out there, have it monitored routinely. I mean, all the time, really, with reports about any bad links that are going out. Things like this is so important to know where your links are going internally and externally, because that can, definitely help you identify issues like this before they get, to where your site's being shut down or anything like that. So, Jack, I know you have something to say.
I was just going to expand on what you just said. You absolutely should be doing malware scanning on the website, and it needs to be done from within the server itself. Not external malware is fine. External malware monitoring is good, but it needs to be from inside, because the inside can get all the files. External only can work through the files that it can see and links from within. So you can find hidden files with an internal one, but those are a little more complicated. You need better hosts for that to achieve that. But yes, Sharik.
Yes, I mean, I find myself a lot of times just explaining to clients, this is why you need this. You need to have the very basics when you're looking to host your website. You need backups, of course. You need something where it gives you a staging site, but you definitely need daily malware scans, because especially like I know you mentioned last year when COVID was on the rise, hackers were home. What were they doing? They were out hacking Zooms like this one. They were out hacking websites, because what else are they going to do? They're home, and hacking was on the rise. Have you seen a reduction, or now that we're going back somewhat to normal, have you seen a reduction, or are you seeing about the same levels?
Is that to me
or Jack?
Okay.
It only increases. It only ever increases, never reduces. A lot of it ends up being automated from the hacker's point. So the bots just run and run and run and run and run. I don't believe it ever goes down. Vince, you're welcome to disagree if you want.
No disagreement at all. In fact, a thought experiment I do with people, and show them, I said, okay, look, I'm going to show you your firewall logs.
Ooh.
And I'm going to show you who's knocking on your door. And I associate it like this. Rain is hitting the roof all the time. It's never not raining on the internet. One little hole, one little crease, and something's going to find its way in. So it's incumbent upon us. That's why we had the idea of an umbrella protection, this multi-paneled umbrella, that I wouldn't hand you an umbrella with missing panels. I'm going to hand you a fully formed umbrella. So when you go outside, it's going to protect you. Our Auvent, the security brand that we have, the French word is Auvent, which is canopy or umbrella. We just added an E to it. And that's our security brand. And when we speak about that, it's adding panels to our layers of protection to our clients that come on board with this. That way, I can't stop the rain, but I can hardly try to stop you from getting wet at the end of the day. So just think of the internet. Once you connect to the internet, you have opened yourself it's almost like you've moved to a really bad neighborhood, and all your neighbors are predators and pedophiles and thieves and robbers. And, so once you connect to the internet, you are now neighbors with lots of really bad people, with highly motivated people, highly automated people to steal and take your money. And they don't care. There's no ethics on the internet.
That's a great way to put it, because you put your website in terms of it's your real estate, it's where you live online. Exactly. And so to put it in terms of who are your neighbors? Your neighbors are these people, and they're trying to invade and break into your home. Exactly. And so, yes, I definitely would agree with that. Just sticking with events, we're going to talk about shared files, because a lot of times with workers at home, they're using Google Drive or they're using OneDrive. When it comes to storing shared files, is cloud storage more or less secure than storing data offline?
So I'll say cloud is more secure if you protect it with strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, it's backed up. Yes, you do have to back up the cloud, and that it's encrypted. So I would say it's more secure in that sense. Okay. It's certainly more secure than your PC or home computer, because somebody can walk in your house and take it. Right. Your laptop can be lost and stolen easily. You're not encrypting your laptop and PC, right? Most of you are not doing that. You're probably not using multi-factor authentication to access your devices. So the cloud is definitely designed around security, because that's their business. You losing something or is going to affect their reputation at a higher scale. You losing your laptop is going to affect you and whoever else you're responsible for or to. So I would say using cloud storage if you have all those things in place. Now, the problem with that is if you're synchronizing files to your desktop from Google Drive, OneDrive, you name it, doesn't really matter. You still need to put those encryptions on your computer. And here's the problem with encryption. Encryption keys reside in memory. And so if you just close your laptop and it goes into suspend mode, you might as well not even have encryption, because if somebody steals your laptop and it's still in suspense, the keys can be taken out of memory and your drive can be decrypted. And I'm just telling you, I just know people, they're not turning off their computers. They're just not. One of the largest hackers in the world was taken down by the FBI in a library by that. They staged a fight. They got him distracted. They took his laptop and pulled his encryption keys out of memory, because that's the only way they could do it, because he was very disciplined about turning off his computer. But at that point, they had to figure out a way to separate him from his computer and physically take it to grab the encryption keys.
Yes, I mean, that's something that we hear a lot about. Jack, please expand.
I was going to say, that was the Silk Road guy, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that's an interesting read, by the way. It is called Kingpin, right?
I believe so.
The book title, Kingpin. Young guy, very smart, very idealistic. Absolutely got destroyed. Did things on the internet that turned out to be used by bad people for a lot of bad things. Interesting read about how, book, right. I see a quote here from Sarah. The book is called Kingpin. I would recommend reading that, especially actually for your teenagers, that they can kind of a little bit eye-opening that, a lot of us we're fundamentally good people, but there's a lot of fundamentally not good people that are on the internet.
Oh yeah.
Right. So just to stick with that, Jack, as far as from a hosting perspective, recently GoDaddy's managed WordPress hosting service suffered a major data breach. And we've heard about this from several larger hosting companies, where I know just recently also SiteGround also experienced a similar outage. Can you speak better to what happened and what they could have done to prevent that?
I am not going to throw shade on any other hosting company. They were targeted because they were very large, right? If you want to rob a small bank or a large bank, or right, if that's what you're doing, there's more return for your effort at those kinds of companies. As far as what they did, and I have no insider information whatsoever, but way I've heard it was like not a very good password somewhere, and they used that to leverage their way in. Your lowest hanging fruit typically are your user base, and a lot of people don't like strong passwords. They can be a pain to use. They can be difficult. Changing them every 30 days is certainly not fun for anybody. But there's a reason your bank makes you do it that way. And I believe that's how these were attacked, is that they got in like that through not very strong passwords that probably were very old. I don't have any insider information on that. What I always say is you should always have your own backups. Always. You personally are ultimately responsible for your data.
Absolutely.
If it's going to hurt you to lose it, then you should make sure that it's secure. Just like, they say not just like we do with our children, but it's on you. If it's your stuff, it's on you to make sure you have backups. If your website shouldn't really have any data that matters.
Right.
If it's publicly accessible, it's kind of like being on your front porch of your house. It's like nobody should be coming up and taking it, but there shouldn't be anything of value there in the first place. If you're taking credit cards, if you're doing e-commerce, absolutely offload that, maybe to a Shopify, to a authorize.net. I'm not naming names or giving preference to anybody other than that. You shouldn't be doing it.
Right.
There's no reason for anybody at our level to be storing that kind of information. I remember a bunch of years ago, it was TJ Maxx got hit for something like 1.8 million credit card numbers. It's like, why do you even have that available? It shouldn't be. There was no reason for that to be stored in an area that could be attacked.
Exactly.
Right. And we see emails, we get emails from companies that, alert you of an attack or things like that. This is partly why I would tell all my clients, when we're done designing your website, get a strong password.
Yes.
Change it now. Unfortunately, many of them do not do that, but I do make it a point to say, please change the password.
Yep.
Because if you keep it for a long time or using the same password across networks, right?
Yeah, that's horrible.
Social,
that's horrible.
your website, everything has the same exact password.
Exactly.
And there's no method of, it's really easy. Sometimes it's the owner's name and year or something like that. And so it's really, really important that, if you get nothing else from this session, that you must change your passwords and you must make it very hard for anyone to access your information, whether it's your website, your social media accounts, because how many times have we gone on Facebook and seen someone say, hey guys, my account was hacked. Don't accept any friend requests from me. We see this all the time because people are getting hacked. Some people I've saw a couple of other business owners who have lost all their followers. These are people who've had tens of thousands of followers because someone came in and hacked their account. They just lost everything and have to start all over. Absolutely. So part of it starts with keeping your door locked at night. You do it at home, but you also must do it for all of your accounts that are online. And I know, like you mentioned before, a lot of businesses or banks will make you do it because they know that most people are not going to do it, unfortunately.
Exactly.
And so, yes.
I would take that above the next step in using a password vault. I recommend that. Now once you start using a password vault, you wonder what you ever did without it. But it's one way of enforcing high level passwords. And I protect my vault with it's called a YubiKey. This is just a touchpad. And so that confirms, that's my two-factor authentication part. So I keep that on all my computers. And that way I sign in with my long password, then I have to touch that to get access. There's no way around that. So your password vault is your critical place. Of course, you don't want that broken into. You want a super long password and you protect that with your YubiKey or some kind of physical device, and you're be in really good shape. And most of the password managers today will tell you which passwords are weak and reused and which ones have been leaked on the internet. And some of them will actually change the password for you, automated, but at least you'll know. And you'll see right in front of you, Keeper, Dashlane, KeyPass, LastPass, those type of products. Very well worth the money, save you tons of time. Absolutely. Don't save your browser passwords, never, ever say save my browser password.
No. I'd like to,
You're gonna add something?
to jump back into the social media that you touched on a moment ago. It's a lot. You read a lot of, everybody's on social media these days, and it's a lot of fun. They got these games or these quizzes that go out, and it'll say something like your Star Wars warrior name is your birthstone and your childhood street you lived on, or something fun like that, right? Or what are eight, how many of these things have you done or not done, or all of those.
Right.
What you're doing is giving information, personal information out to potential hackers. And because you're doing it voluntarily, Facebook or any of the other social medias, they're not even liable for privacy laws because you did it voluntarily. And when you do enough of those, you can use, gather all that big data together and start to build profiles about people. And that helps a great deal with hacking, and especially with social engineering, and especially with more targeted phishing attacks. So they can start to figure out who you might have known years and years and years ago. And so when you get an email that says, hi, I know we haven't talked in a long time, Sharik, but I'm in a bad straits right now, and I need $500, right away. And I remember back when we were in school together, back in Mrs. Smith's fifth grade class or whatever. And they can make a fairly convincing story out of that. Every technology tool that we use for good can unfortunately also be used for bad. So I typically would warn people away from really playing those games, those quizzes. I'm sure they're fun, but you're giving away information that will be used against you.
I totally agree with that. Sometimes I've seen my timeline has been plagued by so many of those silly games and whatnot, and it's tempting, but I appreciate you saying that because I do see those a lot. Just keeping it with, we talked about as far as keeping your front door locked. If you own a website, if you're, someone like myself, I know what to do. I use LastPass and things like that. But if there's someone else who's listening to this who may not, who maybe they're brand new, they're just getting started and building a web design business or a marketing agency, and they own a website company or even a website itself, what security precautions should they take when giving login credentials to outsiders?
So I guess this is more pitched to me at this point.
Yes, it's for you, John.
You don't have to give the same set of credentials to everybody.
Right.
So depends on what kind of credentials you're giving. If you're giving FTP, you can absolutely create multiple FTP accounts. And once this person is done, change the password, delete it, right? Inactivate that particular access. WordPress logins, since that's 30 or 40% of the internet now is on WordPress, absolutely don't have to keep giving out the same admin access to everybody. So maybe you have an SEO person you're bringing in for a short amount of time, right? Or you're bringing in some developer to fix some problem that keeps happening. But again, create a new user for that, and as soon as they're done, get out of there. It's a little more risky with the developer. I'll say something that might be very unpopular. I don't see any need to be using developers outside the US, but I think, there are plenty. I know the development rates are very cheap coming out of India and Eastern Europe, but this is also where many of the hackers live and work. And you might even be, they might be playing both sides of the field here and doing both legitimate work and then breaking in later or selling the access.
That's a key point, because trusting, it's all about the supply chain. So in this sense, if you think of web developers as part of the supply chain, how do you know that web developer isn't planning a backdoor? How do you know they're not putting a crypto miner on your web, of some sort that'll drop a crypto miner browser into somebody's as they come in, and you don't know it, your client doesn't know it. How do you attribute the attack that happens to somebody back to your website until somebody figures that out, and you don't even know? So yeah, it's critical. That's why you deal with professionals, even in construction for your house. You can certainly get your neighbor or a guy you pick up at Home Depot to do the work, but can he come back and finish it? Where's the warranty? What happens if it's not good, well done? What's your ability to go back and claw back some money or some kind of liability? So dealing with professionals, you're going to protect yourself in the long run. You pay a little bit more, but that payment is like, you're investing in something to help you in the future.
Right. I have a follow-up question from Mike. Actually, also, not all FTP accounts need root access, correct? They
Correct.
can just access something like WP content.
That's right.
Absolutely correct.
All right. And so we have some questions in the Q&A we're going to go to. The first one from, I'm going to say Job Up. What are the risks of using Netflix, the Ring doorbell cameras, and the security cameras that I can view using my cell phone? How can you reduce your risk if you're using those kind of tools?
Well, say Netflix and doorbells are going to go over your Wi-Fi primarily. So most of the Wi-Fi devices today have a guest mode as well as what I call normal Wi-Fi mode. You probably want to connect those things to the guest side of the network. So at least if they do penetrate your Wi-Fi, they're not going to get to your PCs, your printers, or your storage devices. People may be backing up to like a Buffalo station or Synology type, what they call a NAS, for storing pictures and such. People like to do their own backups, perhaps. The traditional way, when you got to open a, like call a pinhole or some kind of hole in your firewall to see the traditional multi-camera systems that are out there. The primary risk is most people don't change the default password, or there's an embedded password that you can't change. Most of the companies are out of China, and they have built-in vulnerabilities designed for just this, for people to get in. And once they get in, then they can then scan your network and then perpetrate other issues as well. So your phone is a massive spying tool on yourself. We all know that, you know, they can pick up sound and have targeted marketing go to you, and that can be used against you as well. So having some sort of anti-malware device software on your phone as well, and keeping the guests on the guests and keeping the your family on the family network is important. But we all know our kids give it all out anyway. So it's, if you give them a really inconvenient long password, they'll probably just opt for the guest at that point. You know.
Yes. So we had a raised hand. Adrian Foles had a raised hand. Let me see. Can we make her? Can we have her ask her questions? I don't see it in the Q&A.
No, I don't either.
Or do you want to type it into the Q&A, Adrian? Okay, you can do that. And while she's doing that, just want to go back to the virtual desktop. Sarah Jane had a question about, is it virtual desktop still a useful safety tool if the employee is connecting on an unsecured network? And that's for whoever.
Right. So you would, it's better, but you always want to make sure that however you're reaching that device is over some secure link by a certificate, encryption, a tunnel, VPN, or something that's going to encrypt that information, right?
All right. So Jack's like a question for you. How does a website drive-by happen, and how do you combat?
So I'd like if you can give me a scenario of what you mean by a website drive-by.
I believe you mentioned that when you were talking earlier. You mentioned a website drive-by. So she's wanting to know, how does that happen, and how do you fight it? Let me ask her. Adrian, can you give a little bit of more context of what you mean by that question?
Yeah.
Oh, or
yeah, I had mentioned it because, you know, say WordPress plugin is or FTP is weak, and somebody injects a payload into the website. When you go down, it downloads a drive-by. You don't know what's happening. You're driving by the website, you're visiting the website. Say your marketing is successful, you drove people to your website, yay, but your website's infected, boo. You know, so now you've created X new clients, so they're all infected, and attributing it would be a difficult thing. They just go off and never realize that they've been hit with a drive-by until somebody tells you, hey, Jack, your website has got this infection on it, or you get a flag from your hosting provider. So a drive-by is simply code that's embedded into a website that's designed to subversively get onto your computer and then do nefarious deeds.
All right.
Okay. Well, right. We did talk about that. So the best is going to be prevention, really, or early detection, let's say, with constant malware scanning, especially in internal malware scanning, because they can do more stuff than the external. Thank you. I didn't recognize the term.
So, but Jack, on your side, for your hosting practice, is that something on your servers is provided?
Standard. All hosting with us includes the automated malware scanning, because we don't want that.
No.
We don't want that on us either.
All right, we have one more question from Sarah Jane. It seems that many people only have one phone number. How can someone set up two-step verification for the many different logins that they have? Will those logins still be secure if dozens of them are tied to one personal cell phone?
That's where a password vault comes into play, or an authentication manager. Most password vaults today also include an authentication manager. Authentication manager is what manages that rotating set of 6-digit numbers when you go to a multi-factor. So it's not really tied to the phone as much as it's tied to the authenticator. So if the authenticator can be used in multiple places, I use Keeper, it synchronizes across all my devices. So once I update a password in one place, I can, no matter what device I'm on, I can utilize my password manager, as well as the multi-factor part, the encryption, the rotating 6-digit key that's in there, the authentication manager. But if you can only do, say, texting, there's multiple ways of adding a secondary phone number that's not tied to your phone. You can look up, there's dozens of them out there that offer you another phone number just for that type of service.
Well, great. Well, this has been very, very helpful to, everyone. Like I say, if you're in business, if you have a website, if you have any type of accounts online, this is something that you will definitely need. We're about 5 minutes to 1 o'clock. And so I just want to see if Jack or Vince, if you have any final tips or anything that you want to offer before we close.
A quick question, Shariq, if you don't mind me jumping in. Sure. This all sounds amazing, but from a small business owner perspective, it sounds expensive. Do you have any just sort of quick tips on like how to make these things affordable? I mean, hiring you guys, I'm sure, is very affordable, but are there just what would you just say out there to the small business owner that's like, oh my gosh, I'm already paying for this and this and this, and now you're telling me I have to protect everything? Any thoughts?
I personally think it's nominal costs, for these things, honestly. And especially the leverage that you get from it. Insurance gives you great leverage, right? No one likes paying for insurance, but you do when you have an event. But it's nominal cost when it comes to that. We're not talking about lots and lots of money. We're talking probably $100 or less a year in many cases to have a nice suite of tools that would protect you, and to a large degree. Probably, for less than $250, you could probably have a very, very strong suite of protections on your personal systems.
Yeah, I would agree. Everything that I've talked about, our company includes standard. And, our rates are considered premium, but the reality is it's not a lot of money. And in fact, the difference between even our lowest tier and what you can get at a big box for all the added benefits is probably 2 or 3 cups of coffee a month, quite frankly. It's right up in there. It's with the AMA membership fee. So it's nominal. It's really less expensive in the long run, right? An ounce of prevention is worth the pound of sugar. And I like what somebody just posted up here. Security isn't expensive. Getting hacked is expensive. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, this has been helpful. I hope this has been beneficial to everybody listening.
Right. And if you have any final thoughts before we close, and we've said so much already, but if you have anything else that you just want to leave us with,
I'll
take a second to do so.
Passwords, multi-factor. It's like real estate. Location. I would agree with what Vince just said. Passwords, and preemptive tools. Very good.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. This has been so helpful. And I'm sure people are taking notes, and we'll be probably sending some more questions for you all, because this has been very, very helpful and very, very rich.
Well,
thank you to the AMA for hosting us. I love the AMA. I am a member, and it's an excellent organization.
Thank you.
Look forward to getting together with you guys. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jack and Vince. It's an important dose of medicine that's really critical, not only personally, but professionally. Thank you, Shariq, for sharing your insights and your expertise. And I just want to thank everyone again for being here today on this gorgeous Wednesday. We hope to see you again at our next event. Don't forget, if you're not a member, to please sign up, and please keep attending these events. We love pulling these smart marketers across New Orleans together on a regular basis. It's really fun for everybody to connect. So thanks everyone. Happy holidays, and hope to see you again soon.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye all.
Thanks, everyone.